Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. The holidays are almost here, so I'm going to keep this video short and sweet. Today, I would like to clear up a common misconception I have read or heard about countless times in forums or in YouTube videos, and it is about the effect of binning with a CCD or CMOS camera on the signal-to-noise ratio in deep sky imaging, and on the effect of the focal ratio on the speed of your imaging system. It's going to be a little theoretical today, but I hope you'll enjoy it. All right, let's get started. In case you are fairly new to astrophotography and are not familiar with the term, binning refers to the process of combining the signal from several adjacent pixels to form a single superpixel. It can be done directly on the camera sensor, which has the benefit of reducing the size on disk of every subframe and speeding up download and image processing. But it can also be done post-capture by simply downsampling your image. By combining multiple pixels, the resulting superpixel has a stronger signal. And since the noise does not scale linearly with the signal, the standard deviation of a Poisson distribution is the square root of its mean, it will result in a higher signal-to-noise ratio, which helps reveal faint details. On the other hand, binning reduces the effective resolution of the image, so it should only be used if you are significantly oversampled. For example, let's assume that your camera sensor has pixels that measure 3.76 microns, which is pretty standard nowadays. If you image with a C925 SCT at f10, your image scale is 0.33 arcseconds per pixel. Unless you image from space, you're unlikely to make good use of this incredibly fine resolution in deep sky imaging. However, if you bin 2x2, the image scale will be a more reasonable 0.66 arcsecond per pixel, and you will have increased your SNR. In this situation, binning is very beneficial. Hardware binning in CCD cameras yields better results than hardware binning in CMOS cameras due to differences in how the pixels are read. In CCD cameras, the charge from multiple adjacent pixels is combined into a single superpixel before it is read and digitized. So the read noise does not increase as a result of a hardware binning. On the other hand, in a CMOS camera, each pixel typically has its own amplifier and readout circuit, which means that hardware binning is implemented completely differently from a CCD. It is usually done in software on the electronic board inside your camera, where the digital values from adjacent pixels are summed or averaged after the readout stage. So the read noise of the superpixel is actually higher than the read noise of each original pixel. It just does not grow as quickly as the signal, which means that the SNR still increases, but not as fast as with a CCD camera. Everything I just said is 100% true, in theory at least. And it has led some people to conclude, maybe a bit quickly, that binning 2x2 with a CCD camera increases the signal-to-noise ratio by a factor of 4, while it increases the signal-to-noise ratio by a factor of only 2 in the case of a CMOS camera. In both cases, each superpixel gets 4 times the signal. But in the case of a CCD camera, the read noise remains the same, whereas you get twice the amount of read noise in the case of a CMOS camera. Yes, twice, and not 4 times, because the combined noise level is the square root of a quadratic sum. Anyway, this means that CMOS cameras are at a clear disadvantage over CCD cameras when it comes to binning. And I have read this in countless forum posts. And I have even heard this in videos on a popular astronomy channel that I won't name. This is exactly what I want to argue today, because while it sounds right, the reality is a lot more interesting, as you'll see in a minute. Before we dive into the details, if you enjoy this type of content, please give it a like, leave a comment below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Without your support, this channel would not exist, and since the holidays are coming up, I'm sure that some of you may be thinking about snatching a brand new piece of gear. If you would like to support this channel at absolutely no cost to you, please click on the affiliate links in the description below. If you buy something from Agena Astro, High Point Scientific, or even Amazon, within a few days after clicking on my links, I will get a tiny commission. And that makes a huge difference. So thank you so much for your support. All right, let's get back to the video. So instead of thinking in abstract terms, let's consider a real image. The noise in that image will be contributed by the following sources: the photon shot noise coming from the object itself, the sky glow shot noise, the read noise, the dark current shot noise, and the quantization noise. There is something called fixed pattern noise, which you might have heard about, but it has nothing to do with noise. It is just unwanted signal that can be removed during calibration, so I won't even mention it. Okay, so now that we know the sources of noise in our image, let's see if we can estimate the relative value under average conditions. In modern CMOS cameras, at least those built in the last 3 or 4 years, like my ZW ASI 533mm Pro, the read noise, the dark current shot noise, and the quantization noise are all extremely small. The read noise, which depends on the gain, is about 1.5 electrons at gain 100. The dark current shot noise, which depends on the sensor temperature and the exposure length, is about 1 electron at -5 Celsius degrees for a 10-minute exposure. And the quantization noise, which depends on the ADC resolution and on the gain, is in the same order of magnitude as the other two. So these 3 sources of noise have relatively similar values. How do they compare with the photon shot noise from the object and the sky glow? I can't give you exact numbers because it depends on too many factors. It depends on the surface brightness of the object you are shooting, or the exposure length, or your telescope's focal ratio. It also depends on your light pollution conditions, or whether or not there is intense sky glow due to solar activity. And finally, it depends on whether you are doing broadband or narrowband imaging. But basically, what you need to remember is that if you are doing narrowband imaging under Bortle 1 skies, like Bray Falls or Jansz-Enti and their search for new undiscovered nebulae, or if you are doing high-resolution spectroscopy, then you should most definitely be concerned with read noise, dark current shot noise, and quantization noise. But in pretty much all other situations, you can safely ignore these sources of noise because they are dwarfed by the photon shot noise from the object itself and from the sky glow. And if read noise, dark current shot noise, and quantization noise can be safely ignored, then binning 2x2 either in hardware or post-capture would increase the signal-to-noise ratio by a factor of 2, whether you are using a CCD camera or a CMOS camera. That does not make any difference. And CMOS cameras are not at any disadvantage compared to CCD cameras. So don't be afraid to use binning, and if you know ahead of time that you are going to bin, you might as well do it in hardware and enjoy the benefits of having smaller subs that can be downloaded and processed more quickly than if you were to bin by downsampling your images post-capture. One last thing. For the same reason as I've just explained, the signal-to-noise ratio of your imaging system is proportional to the inverse of its focal ratio, and not to the inverse square. So an f5 system is only twice as fast as an f10 system, not 4 times as I thought for a very long time. All right, I hope that I helped clarify things a bit. If you have any questions, please post them below and I will do my best to answer them. And if I can't, maybe someone else will. I will be back soon, depending on whether I can find the time to produce more content during the holidays. So until next time, thank you for watching.